While Budget 2021 is looking to the combined challenges of Brexit and COVID and housing, I think it fails to bring about the structural change to our economy that would make it far more sustainable for all sectors of our economy. We're spending €3,600 for every man, woman and child in Ireland, but I don't get the impression that this money is being spent any differently than the money being spent last year, or the year before, or the year before that. I think this was an opportunity, the opportunity in a generation to reform the way that we work and the way that we live in this country. But today, we didn't take that opportunity. So while Budget 2021 talks about the interdepartmental group considering remote working, we know that a similar announcement was made this time last year to look at hot desking of vacant desks in public buildings across the country for civil servants who were commuting into Dublin. But we haven't seen any movement in that initiative 12 months later. There's no new provisions in this budget for funding under the National Broadband Plan. In fact, the spending that was announced today was spending that I secured as Minister for Communications a number of years ago. As a result, disappointingly, there is no indication of any fast-tracking of the delivery of the National Broadband Plan to isolated rural homes, as had previously been promised in the programme for government. Budget 2021 also talks about a recovery fund, but there's little detail of what that will do to reform our economy to live with COVID-19, to allow more people to work and study remotely, and to support new ways of doing business. And while I welcome the initiative announced today in terms of the Shared Island Initiative, and I hope that it will build cooperation across this Ireland and develop these key cross-border projects, it must include the development of the Beara-Breffni Way, which currently runs from the Beara Peninsula in West Cork to Blackline in County Cavan, and that now needs to continue from Blackline in County Cavan along the Ulster Way to the Glens of Antrim, completing the Ulster Way and ensuring that that route, Ireland's answer to the Camino from Beara in West Cork right up to the Glens of Antrim, is marketed in a similar way to the Wild Atlantic Way. And while the housing investment that has been announced today is very welcome, it's not going to deliver in the short term. And as a short-term measure, we need to encourage families that are living in our cities to give up their homes and to relocate to rural towns and villages, to streets that haven't seen a football being kicked on them in a generation, and as well as that, helping to ease the pressure in our cities as well. I propose that we provide a €15,000 grant to first-time buyers purchasing an existing property in a town and village with a significant residential vacancy rate. Presently, the Department of Housing is providing a subsidy of €30,174 on average to provide a new service site here in the City of Dublin. So, for every family that would take up that offer, would give up a house here in Dublin and relocate to parts of the country that have been decimated by depopulation, it would actually save the state over €15,700. And there's no doubt that the funding that has been secured in the health and disability budget is very welcome. But it is vital that that particular funding is converted into the delivery of services for those who actually need them. For example, the funding of €5 million or of 5 million additional home help hours is very, very welcome. But as we have seen in the past, that those hours have not been delivered on the ground in previous budgets. Home carers have had a very challenging year. Isolation due to cocooning, reduction in the available home help, and family help because of the COVID-19 restrictions. Intellectual disability centres, 60% of them have yet to reopen. And giving just €25, less than 50 cents a week under the carer support grant, over and above what has actually been given to ordinary taxpayers under the Stay and Spend scheme, I don't believe is an adequate acknowledgement of the work that carers are doing right across the length and breadth of this country, particularly those full-time carers. And while funding is being provided to address the impact of COVID-19 across various sectors of our economy, which is welcome, the real fear is that it will not prepare any of these sectors for the new reality post-COVID and post-Brexit. I have suggested that we would establish a pilot microgeneration scheme on farms, because across the country, government has over the years subsidised the upgrading of the electricity network to farms. And I believe that that should now be used to allow farmers who have large amounts of roof space on isolated sites suitable for the deployment of renewable energy to generate electricity for their own neighbours. And piloting this particular initiative within the agricultural sector would be an ideal way to identify the challenges with microgeneration in advance of implementing the commitments that I signed Ireland up to under the EU Renewable Energy Directive. I do welcome the pilot environmental programme in agriculture. €20 million has been set aside for that. But if members here will recall, 12 months ago, the then Minister for Finance, Paschal Donohoe, announced €3 million for a similar scheme, and not 1 cent of that has been drawn down. So it is imperative that any environmental scheme that is in place, that it is actually utilised, and that we actually develop environmental schemes that are farmer-focused, farmer-designed, and actually deliver real benefits in rural communities across this country. I am disappointed, though, that the government didn't introduce a suggested proposal that we put forward, that we would have a suckler cow environmental scheme, paying €200 per cow for up to 20 cows to sustain and support suckler beef production in this country, based on the very innovative Smart Farming Initiative, an initiative I supported as Minister, an initiative between the Environmental Protection Agency, Teagasc, and the IFA a number of years ago. So, while I will work with government to ensure that the funds that are being made available are utilised to achieve the goals that government set out, I am worried and concerned that Budget 2021 is just tinkering around the edges rather than providing the type of real reform that can bring life back into rural communities, into regional Ireland, into our towns and villages, while responding to the challenges of COVID-19 and the challenges that we're now facing in terms of Brexit. Gar mí maith agat.